Okay, next story. This one not positive story. Famed Kings Beach bear shot and killed in campground confrontation.
Yeah, we talked a bunch about this bear. This bear went viral like 10 different times. Uh, Approximately, and this was back in 2020, approximately 500 pounds, this bear was.
Right.
And it's funny. It isn't funny, but it is. He used to just just slowly stroll into Safeway, grab a bag of chips, walk out. Or he would stop and eat it right there in the store, walk out. He would walk into the Chevron, grab some snacks, walk out. He even got in the viral fight with the gas station attendant at the Chevron. Like, this bear, it was, at the time, it was funny, and
Sure.
it went viral, and now we are seeing exactly the impact of bears that get used to this human food, right? So the Kings Beach bear was captured, he was collared, and they put him out way into the wilderness. Essentially, like 6 months later, they found his collar. He had lost so much weight because he was so used to being able to get human food that he couldn't eat out in the wild. He had lost so much weight that his collar fell off.
Without it being like pulled off, it like naturally fell off. There's a picture of it on the article, and it's completely unscathed.
Right. So their thought was, this bear might have died out in the wilderness, and because there was a tracking collar on it, and they knew exactly where he was, and they thought he might have just gone into the wilderness and died because he couldn't survive out in the wild on his own. Well, then it turns out he popped up in August in this campground near Hermit Valley, which is in Alpine County, and he kept coming back and back to this campground and stealing food. So much so that this family was trying to scare it off. They tried everything, and finally the bear would not leave them alone, and they shot and killed him. And CDFW did a full investigation and said they were absolutely justified. In fact, they said ultimately the actions of the shooter was the most humane outcome for this bear.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously a terrible story. This was a famed viral sensation bear, but those are not positive signs. When a bear is going into the human environments, it's generally a place that they try to avoid. But being so malnourished, they get the balls to go into Safeway or into Chevron, which is why this bear was kind of nicknamed the Safeway bear or the Chevron bear. And and a lot of this probably has to do with the lack of rain and the lack of just things that these bears are naturally feeding off of. So when they start to go into these, manned areas, it's generally a bad sign. And, after they did this investigation, this bear was in terrible shape. I mean, it had lost a tremendous amount of body weight. It was, I think it's their teeth were rotted away, which that's a huge, if you can't chew your food, so they say that this bear was probably over 15 years old. I don't think they know exactly how old it was, but bears generally live longer than that. And so it's sad that it had to go out this way. And again, as you mentioned, the family that was being kind of provoked did all they could, and then there's, this guy, this man has family there, I mean, at some point you got to defend yourself. And again, you said it, ultimately the action of the shooter was the most humane outcome for the bear. It's a sad story.
I think that the interesting thing is this is probably the most extreme case of a bear relying so heavily on humans. And you look at, how we're developing these areas that these bears call home, and we're probably going to see this more and more, right? These bears, I mean, they eat so good, and they are 500 pounds, this guy was. It's so hard for them to get to that weight in the wild because they're constantly walking and they're searching for food, and they have to, kill their food and eat it. Like, there's a lot of calories burned and all those activities. And this guy is just, he can crawl in the dumpster in Kings Beach or Tahoe City, or he can just walk into the Safeway and no one can do anything about it. and it doesn't, it's just not sustainable unless he is fed that entire time. And this is the problem. This is why bears keep coming back, and this is why, the wildlife officials have needed to, in some cases, put these bears down because they just will not stop. And this bear, they put him out way in the wilderness in, the Stanislaus National Forest, I believe. Far away. This bear came all the way back looking for that, it's Willy Wonka's chocolate factory for some nice grub. And that's how desperate it was to try to get back to that, world where the hometown buffet essentially of Tahoe.
27 miles away. 27 miles away is where they took it. And, we keep seeing more and more viral videos of bears breaking into cars and cabins in Lake Tahoe area and all over Northern California, really. And while they are fun to watch, generally speaking, it's just a sign of bad things that is happening in nature. And again, a lot of it is drought related.
So it was 27 miles away from CDFW's El Dorado County facility, which is probably a good 30 miles away from Kings Beach. So and I don't know how far that is from Hermit Valley, but that bear traveled far to come back, So
when you're hungry, you're hungry.
Yeah. But it's, what did CDFW say? CDFW biologists now have more empirical evidence and a rather traumatic case study about the ability of human food conditioned bears to successfully transition to life in the wild. Essentially, it's a really bad case study.
Yeah, so every time you see one of those viral videos of bears, just know that that's a sign of negative stuff.
It's so hard to feel that way because it's a funny video.
It's fun to watch.
He is walking out with a bag of chips.
Right.
You cannot not laugh. We all watched what was the show with the bear?
Super Troopers?
No, no, Smarter Than Your Average Bear. Yogi. And his whole thing was trying to get human food, and we thought that was hilarious, and now it turns out
Winnie the Pooh eating honey. I mean, I guess that's also bear food, but
yeah, is Winnie the Pooh a bear? He's a pretty
Winnie the Pooh is $1 billion corporation.
He's a pretty small bear.
So yeah, it's sad that this ended poorly. Hopefully we don't see too much more of this in the future.